Okay. Right, ladies. After a bit of a false start, sorry, it is now working. It is working, and we have a couple of people on here. Sorry about that. Apologies. Technology issues, as usual. I thought everything was working perfectly until the only thing that was not working was the Zoom. Okay. Parsha's Barmidbar, what we were saying was that everything is by divine providence. Yeah. And as we are supposed to be living with the times, page 848 in the Gutnik Chumash, if you have 849 in the Gutnik Chumash, if you have, it's chapter 1, would you believe, verse 1 of the new book of Barmidbar. And we said, because this is by divine providence, that we are reading about this just before the giving of the Torah. Because Shavuos is next week. So what is the connection with the desert? What is the connection with the desert about the giving of the Torah? The Torah was given in the desert. Why was it given in the desert? Interestingly, because who lives in the desert? Well, everybody will say nomads. Yes, I was just about to say nomadic people. Nomadic people, a few Bedouins, but not really too many people. I mean, the population density of a desert is virtually zero. Yes, because it's too hot. There's nothing growing there. There's not enough water there. Yes, so people don't really live in the desert, and that's why what it says: if you find something in the desert, if you find anything in the desert, it's yours. It's yours because it's called hefker. Hefker. Mm-hmm. It's free. It's yours. Yes. Oh, hello. So therefore, the desert is hefker. Now it's the same thing in a way with the Torah. Torah means that anyone can accompany. Anyone can acquire it.
Right, it's like no freeholding. What do you call it? What do they call it here? Freeholding.
Freehold. Yeah. That relates to property.
Oh, I see.
We're talking about immovables.
Oh.
Immovables. But the truth is the Torah. So the fact is, anyone and everyone can get the crown of the Torah. The crown of, let's say, kingship is only open to people who are descended from the house of King David. The house of the kingdom, if you like, the kingship of priesthood is only open to those who are descended from the family of Aaron in the tribe of Levi. Otherwise, you can't become a Kohen. But Torah is open for everyone to claim for themselves. And that's why perhaps we start off Barmidbar, because now, in a sense, this book represents the last stage, if you like, or the final stage of bringing holiness into the world. We start off with the book of Genesis. Genesis is Hashem creating a world full of just natural things that have no apparent connection. No apparent connection to spirituality. It's just ordinary nature. Okay? Then we have the book of Shmos, which we are dealing with the creation of the Mishkan, the tabernacle, which of course is the central place of God's divine presence in the world. So that's the book of Shmos. Then we have the book of Vayikra. Then we're extending now the influence of the Mishkan. There's two stages in the influence of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle, of bringing things under the umbrella of the Shekhinah. One is the korbanos, the sacrifices, which is obviously, the sacrifices are called kodshim, holy things. Come in. Doors open. Oh, you shut the door?
I don't know.
Naughty. So kodshim are the holy sacrifices, so that they are within the holiness, the closeness of those things that are brought under the umbrella, the rubric of the Mishkan. That is the book of Vayikra, because we talk about all the sacrifices. And lastly, the stage 2, which is the big stage, is that now we have the Mishkan. And then we have those holy things that are associated with Mishkan. Now we're going to go one stage further. We're going to go into the world. We're going to go into the world and bring even things that are not particularly necessarily holy and bring them under the umbrella of the Mishkan. And that was represented in the book of Barmidbar, because here they started on their journeys which at this point, they were going on the way to the land of Israel. And at this point, there was, not, they didn't know that they were going to actually be stuck in the desert for 40 years. Okay. But there at least was this idea that they're going to go now to Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, and walking around the Midbar, going in the various travels that they did, they were involving various parts of the Midbar that would not really be associated with holiness normally. And they were bringing the Mishkan there and there and there and there and there and there, right? So this is the final stage of bringing things of the worldly class that are not necessarily holy under the umbrella of the Mishkan, okay? And this was a preparation for us going to the land of Israel, which of course is the next stage.
Which we're still in.
I'm sorry?
Which we're still in, preparing to get back to the land of Israel.
Well, Baruch Hashem, there are about 6 million people living in the land of Israel. And so we are in the land of Israel, but I assume you're talking about the Messianic return, but of course that in a way has already, the ingathering, if you like, of the exiles has, I mean, the Rebbe said, has pretty much, that has begun, shall we say. It's not that the Mashiach is here or Mashiach has arrived or the redemption is here, but the Rebbe did say that it is quite clear that, I mean, Israel, if I'm not mistaken now, has the largest population, Jewish population in the world, which hasn't existed for 2,000, that hasn't happened for 2,000 years. Okay, so this is, you can see this is a harbinger of the Messianic era, but Ezra Hashem B'Kor Mamash, the Meir B'Min. Amen. Now, the first thing we do in Parsha's Barmidbar is, look what Rashi says. Again, the first thing he says, Barmidbar Sinai Be'echad L'Chodesh, at this particular day, on the first of the month, the second month of the year, which month was that?
Yeah.
The second. Yes, presumably it means ER. Okay, although technically speaking, it is the 8th month. If you call it from Rosh Hashanah, starting from, that's the first month, from the 7th month. But remember, we said that for the Jewish people, the first month is Nisan, is sort of the miraculous. Yes, that's the miraculous. So here's the second month of them. So they started counting. And Rashi right away says, that because Hashem loves the Jewish people, he just counts them. He's counting them all the time. As soon as they came out of Egypt, he counted them. And when the Egel, the golden calf, unfortunately, they sinned the golden calf, he also wanted to count them, to know how many people are left and how many died. When just before the Shekhinah was to come down in Parsha Shmini, and before there was a counting there as well. And he says that this is the Be'echa b'Nisan Hukam Mishkan. Interesting. He says on the 1st of Nisan, the Mishkan was set up, and Be'echa b'Iyar, and the 1st of Iyar, he counted them. So, in other words, it wasn't exactly before, it was actually just after the Shekhinah came down, right? A month after. But it was close to. So Hashem likes to count us. The king was in his council, counting up his Jews. He was counting up his Jews, because that's what he likes doing. He likes counting the Jews. We're not supposed to count. But counting is an interesting thing, isn't it? And we've discussed this on several occasions, but we'll...
Hello, can I say
Yes.
something?
Of course. If I can first say a bracha. Hello?
Amen.
It's a bit like when you go on an outing and you have to keep counting the people to make sure you haven't lost anybody.
That speaks a school teacher.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Here, I think the love was not so much a fear of worrying, but a certain preciousness and cherishing, that you just love counting things. Like you say, you love counting gold pieces, you like counting diamonds. Yes, this is like something. The funny thing is, when you count something, in a way, you could say it's slightly degrades it, because you're not actually, when you count something, you're not looking at the individual character or greatness of the person.
Giving it a number.
You're just giving a number, exactly. And in a way, you could say that's a little bit sort of demeaning is too strong a word, but limiting. I mean, if you're just a number, then what's the greatness of that? And here we have an interesting discussion in Judaism about quantity versus quality. And of course, we always like to, because we're such a small nation, right? We're one of the smallest nations on earth, and we can't seem to get beyond, 20 million, 21 million. That was like we were at a height, before the Holocaust. And we still, I keep mentioning it, if people don't realize this, we haven't actually made up those numbers yet.
No.
Would you believe? We have not made up those numbers, despite the fact that the Haredi world are having, 6 kids, 7 kids, 8 kids, whatever it is. The numbers, because we're losing exactly through intermarriage, through late marriage, yes, through small families, 2.1, families. This is all a bit of a challenge for the demography of the Jewish people. Right?
So how many still do we need to make up the number?
What do you mean? How many children?
No, how many Jewish people are missing now compared to before?
Well, they say at the beginning of before the war, there was about 21, 22 million. And what do they say now? There's about 16 million. So, do you know what I'm saying? We're still sort of hanging around. We're still hanging around.
80 years, it's taken 80 years or 70 whatever years, and we have still got a lot of millions missing.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
They're talking about observance? Or
No, altogether. I'm not here I'm counting. I'm not saying the frum, the non-frum, everybody we're
It's
counting.
not choice. God sends some people, he doesn't send other people. It's funny with
What-
kids. I mean, people don't
what do you mean?
choose to have 2.1 kids. They just.
Why
give them
why
one.
of course they
No, I'm
should.
just saying it's nothing to do with orthodoxy. A lot of people say to me they don't love more kids, so they just.
Well, when you say a lot, I mean, a lot is not really a statistical reliability. When people generally speaking, who are, let's say, just regular traditional,
Right.
they do choose to have smaller families. I mean, having the amount of children you have, obviously, sometimes it's not a choice. Okay, we all know about that. We all know about that. Okay, sometimes it is definitely not a choice, and we can't ignore that. Yes, but at the end of the day, why is it that let's say the Haredi world, they do have much larger families? It's not just what Hashem is blessing the Haredi families. He's not blessing the other families. What does that mean? It's not true, because that is a choice that people make, and we're living in a world where, birth control, is for the first time in history, okay, since the 60s, 70s, since the pill, is a conscious decision. Yes, this is not a matter of. I'm talking about statistically. This is what people choose to do. Okay, so it is a bit sad, and we, as I say, perhaps I don't think people realize this. Most people don't actually realize the demography, the disastrous demography of the Jewish people. Most people don't know about it. They don't know, I know there's 15, 16 million, there's 6 million Jews here, America, 5 million, we just, the numbers roll off. But if you look at it, millions, there are millions. And there's so many people on that EasyJet plane, it's driving me crazy. I wish there'd be a few left, a few less, you know what I'm saying? And you can't get into the hotel, and all the summer programs, they're all overbooked. There's so many Jews. But really, if you look down, there is serious problems, demographically with the Jewish people. So this is one of the challenges. A lot of people, a lot of young people getting married late. They're not getting married in the early 20s, which is, in previous times, you used to get married in their late teens or even their mid-teens. Okay, mid-teens. That was quite normal.
There's no choice today. people will not settle for less.
Well, that's it. And they're looking for perfection. That's another thing. People, they want to get married, they want perfection first, you see. And I could always get better. We can always get better. And everybody's looking for perfection. Terrible problem. Terrible problem. It is all a bit of a disaster, frankly. And by the way, the frum world, the Haredi world, is not immune to that as well. There are plenty of problems there. Okay. In fact, some of the Rabbanim now are saying, that they should actively try and get kids to marry younger than used to be like 23, 24, 24, 25. Now people are saying no. The Rabbanim are saying no. We should try to get married earlier, 22, 23. I'm just saying in certain circles. Some are even younger. Some much younger. Anyway, so counting. Let's talk about counting a little bit. So you see, so what counting is, we have to understand, it's not just about quality. Of course, every person is unique and every person has a unique quality to them. But there is an idea of quantity as well. There is an idea of quantity. And when you have a lot, you have a better quality. I mean, look, I'll be perfectly frank with you. When we have Kanena Horror, 7, 8, 9, 10 ladies at the Shiur coming, right? So it's a different atmosphere from when there's 2 or 3.
Yes.
Do you understand? Now, even though each of those 2 or 3 or 4 are very special, unique individuals, but the more one has, the greater the quality, because the more contribution from more people, contributes to the quality. Do you understand? So the Rebbe was very much in favor of, of pushing that numbers are important. We shouldn't always, comfort ourselves and say, well, we got great quality. Where somebody once said, never mind the quality, feel the width. You remember that? That was from a famous show. Great line. But no, we should feel the width, and we want that expansion. Now, there's a great question. So that is why it's important that increasing numbers also increases quality. So Mitzvah Hashem, we look forward to the Shiur being double the size. Mitzvah Hashem, so that we'll have to bring in another long table, right? We'll have to bring another long table, and because we can't get everybody on this table. There's a Hashem, so that should happen very soon. Okay. Now, I'm going to share with you, I had a very interesting thought here, and it's based on a great author called the Shalom, the Shnei Lupos Habris. You ever heard of him, right? His name is Rabbi Horowitz, fantastic, great scholar of the 17th century, I believe. And he wrote this fantastic ethical work called the two tablets of the covenant. Shnei Lupos Habris. That's actually, his name is after that work.
How do you say it in?
Shnei,
Shnei.
2 Luchos Habris, which is what we're Shalom.
Oh, that's
Shalom.
the acronym.
That's the acronym of this, of Rabbi Horowitz. Okay, I think he lived in Prague, if I'm not mistaken, in the 17th century, and he asks a very interesting question. No, he doesn't ask a question. He makes a statement. He says one of the reasons that Hashem wanted to count the Jewish people so much, and there's a concept of counting where we have there's a halachic concept. Let me try and explain to you that. A little bit of a crash course on kashrus. Yes. Now there are 2 ways of selling things or giving away things, selling things. You usually sell things that are either you sell a quantity, you sell a weight of something, yes, or you sell a number of something, yes. Like you usually if you'll sort of chuck in some nuts and raisins or grains or little sweets, who knows what, you're sold by the weight, or tomatoes, small fruits, berries, they're sold by weight. But then there are other things that are sold by number, right? How many grapefruits, how many oranges, how many eggs, a dozen, yes? You don't say, I'll take a handful of eggs. Give me a pound of eggs. You don't have a pound of eggs, you have a dozen eggs. Well, why can't you have a pound? Because this is just how it is. Certain things that are countable. Now, we have a principle that if something is, let's say, if something not kosher yes, falls into something else. Sorry, is something not kosher, falls into a mess of stuff that is okay to eat, that is kosher. The question is, can you eat it?
Depends if it's a 60.
Well, exactly. Now here, that's one point. Actually, biblically speaking, all you need is a majority, a simple majority, 2 to 1. 2 to 1 is good enough biblically. But rabbinically, 2 to 1, as much of the good stuff, the kosher stuff, as the non-kosher stuff. Yes?
Okay.
Let's say you had some stuff from, let's say, the Shemitah year that would fall into some grains or barley, right? And if you had, biblically speaking, twice as much as good grain, that would nullify the the problematic stuff, right? Now, rabbinically, as you point out, Rona, you need 60 times. 60 times. We're not going into why and how and what, but that just take it from me that you need 60, and that is how we work. Yes, that you need in order to render something kosher. If you have a little bit of milk, falls into some chicken soup, yes, or some meaty soup, then if you have 60 times as much as soup, then then it's okay. The soup is okay, yeah. So if you have a drop, if there's not, the whole thing becomes treif, yes, because it can be overwhelmed, yes, by the amount of the kosher
We're
stuff.
talking about something with splatters, like.
But we're not talking about. No, we're not talking about pouring in.
Yeah.
No, we're talking accidentally. You're talking about if it happens. No, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to have, I'm like some chicken soup, but I'm going to make 60 times as much.
Make it
cream of chicken soup, but I'll only put a little bit of cream and it'll be bottled. No, you're not allowed to do that. I don't think, So it's only if it did happen by accident or whatever. Yeah.
It's still a shiloh.
Well, it's only a shiloh if it wasn't 60. Yeah. If
you're able to determine.
If you can determine it was 60, and sometimes it, because one little drop of milk fell in or 2 little drops, you can see it. I've got a whole pot of chicken soup. There's about 6,000 times as much, yes, as the chicken soup. So now, however, when it comes to counting something that is countable, yes, there's a bit of a problem there. We have a principle that Dover Sheva Minin, something that is usually counted, it does not become bottle. Bottle means this is a bottle, but bottle meaning nullified. Yes. So therefore, in other words, if for example, let's have a bottle of non-kosher juice, right? We don't know which it is. It looks all the same, and it would fill into a whole crate full of this stuff. It doesn't become bottle. Why doesn't it become bottle? Because this is counted. It's counted as a number. It's an individual that is not, that's counted. Like eggs, if you have a non-kosher egg, a treifa egg, let's say from a treif bird, from a non-kosher bird, you look puzzled.
Yeah.
You look confused. If you have a non-kosher egg from a non-kosher bird, I mean, let's put aside for a minute that they look non-kosher. You can tell that they're non-kosher, right? But let's imagine, or let's say it was a treifa chicken. Yes, a treifa chicken. A treifa chicken, not meaning so it was unhealthy, it was going to die, right? So that means you can't really eat that chicken, and I don't think you can eat the eggs as well. Okay, so if an egg got mixed up with some other eggs, it doesn't matter how many. It could be 1,000 eggs. The whole thing's problem. Right.
Have to check the eggs, so we shouldn't.
Well, exactly. But the problem is you can't usually locate it. That's the problem.
Even if you can't get it out. It sort of mixes with the others.
No, I'm talking about in the shell. I'm not talking about.
Right.
No, I'm not talking about once it's been opened.
Right.
No. I'm talking about there it's all mixed in. Now that might be slightly different, because if it's all been mixed in, yes. And then somebody says, oh, there was a treif bird in there. There was treif egg. That might be different, because then it's all mixed in, because you're not counting there the eggs that have been cracked open and mixed. Do you understand? That's like a liquid already. Yeah, but then I think that would not be from them. Then would be bottle if you got 60 times. Yes, because then, I'm saying after the fact. Not you could do that. I'm saying after the fact. Oh, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm thinking.
Sorry about this, but let's say you have, have a bucket full of eggs, you're gonna make a huge cake. Then all by an accident, one egg falls in there and got a spot. One egg
And
with
what?
a spot with a blood spot in it.
Yeah.
But there's a bath, you know, you should have, I don't know, 20 eggs in there and one egg.
Okay, well, the truth is, we're getting a little bit off the subject because I don't want to get into the whole kashrut. This is a crash course, not a. The truth is, a blood spot actually is a lot easier because nowadays blood spots are not what they used to be. Blood spots now do not exactly. It's not a fertilized egg anyway, and therefore nowadays the custom is to throw out the egg, but technically you could just throw out the blood spot.
Yeah,
But if it's all mixed in, it's still not a problem.
I just throw the whole thing
Yes,
out.
because
We've been doing it
But-
for
okay.
like 40
Yeah, but
years.
some
you know?
people buy eggs that are not battery eggs, so they could be fertilized. That's the problem.
I'm not so
That's
sure
true.
about that. I'm not so sure about that. It's not just about battery. The eggs that are nowadays being sold, whether they're free range or
Brown.
what? No. Brown just means that there's more likely to be blood drops, but it's not meaning that the egg is actually fertilized, because the way that the eggs are done is done in such a way that they're not fertilized.
I see.
Okay, there are no male cocks involved with this. So they're just giving sterile eggs. Okay, I think regardless of whether they're free range or not.
That's nowadays.
You will not
It
crack
wasn't
open
like
a half chick, you know, with
that.
a free range, you know. Oh, look at that, you know. Anyway, can we move on? Can we get off the eggs? I'm feeling hungry. Have you got any cake? No. Yes. You must be yoking.
With an L.
Sorry. Well, I think it's to do with what they do is they have a light.
Because they couldn't check it.
They have light. They have lights. I think in the production schedule, all the eggs go through a light, a beam, and the beam will show that there's a blood spot there.
Yeah.
And presumably, I think the brown ones, the light can't get through as easily.
Also, I remember my father saying that the brown ones had a lot of shyness, that they weren't.
Like, go away.
Sure if it was red or brown. There's lots of little bits in them that we don't find in the white egg.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Furthermore, I think we'll have a special workshop on eggs
Yeah.
at some point. The ladies' workshop on eggs. But if I can just bring us back. Let's bring us back to what we've started. Yes. What we were saying. So the Shalah, remember the Shalah?
Yeah.
The Shalah says that the reason why Hashem counted the Jews, the reason he's counted. Oh, I'm sorry.
Say hi, Ellie.
Hi, everybody.
Ellie.
Okay. I know. I know it is.
It was very awkward to maneuver here every time I.
Would you be able to mute yourself, Denise? Sorry. Thank you. So the Shalah says that the reason why Hashem counted them was so that knowing that the Jewish people would be going into the world at large, he didn't want them to become a bottle, to become nullified in the masses of the non-Jewish people. We're living in a world today where there are how many non-Jews in the world? I believe we've just hit 8 billion. I think we're just 8 billion. Start counting, and I'll tell you when you get up to 8 billion. How do they count?
Yeah, how did they? People don't volunteer doing census.
I mean, they do census in some countries, but not every country.
Okay, well, these are estimates of census. These are guesstimates or estimates. But, you know, they're normally a bit spot on, you know, 1.5 billion in China, 1.3 billion in India, right? There you're already 2.8. And then, you just add it all up. So basically there's estimates.
Yeah.
So I'm not talking about an exact number, but they're saying we just went over the 8 billion. But so, in other words, the Jewish people are in 15 million, as I think Jonathan Sachs once said, that the Jewish people represent statistically a statistical error in the Chinese census. A statistical error. In other words, how do they know? Well, you estimate that there's right? And you say plus or minus, because plus or minus means, well, give or take 50 million, or 100 million. Because so give or take, because you don't know exactly. So we represent less than, like almost a tenth of us, a bit of an error in the Chinese sense. It's quite incredible, really, when you think about it, how few Jews there are in relation to the rest of the world. And so the Shalosh says, but by counting the Jewish people, this would ensure that because we're Dover Sheba Minyan, we're being counted, we do not become bottle. You understand? This was
being counted, we don't become bottle.
Indeed. When we're counted, we don't become bottle. Okay. So now here's a fascinating thing. The Rebbe asked a question. He actually asked two questions on this. He asked two questions. Question number one. In order for something not to become bottle, become nullified, you don't actually have to count the thing itself. If it just is a thing that is countable, and we know that it is countable, then that's good enough. Dayenu. So why did Hashem actually have to go out and count the Jews? Because you would have still got the idea, if we knowing that we are a sort of countable thing, yes, like, special eggs or whatever it is, special fruits, right? So therefore that should be enough. You don't have to actually count us in reality. That's question number one. You get the question? You understand?
Yeah.
Good enough, just that we're just potentially countable. Yes. Question number two: who were actually counted? Who actually counted in the Jewish census? Was everybody counted?
I think
From 20 and upwards.
Except that if they were
Those who would go to war, right? 20 to 60. Yes.
That was for the army, for the soldiers.
But that was always so fine. But then, so why then are the children not counted? I mean, children. I mean, honestly, children don't count.
Well, on Purim, before Purim, we count the embryos when you pay the money for the whatever it is.
It's not Purim.
We can't. We have chetzi shekel. Yes, we give a half a shekel. Yeah.
Even for the unborn one.
No. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
You're talking about kaporas, Denise. The consensus here is that you're talking about kaporas. Sorry, we're having to correct you. The chetzi shekel is only for adults. The chetzi shekel is for adults. Yeah, it was also technically speaking, yes, but you would count. You would give the chetzi shekel if you wanted to count. There's two things. Don't get mixed up here. The chetzi shekel, one form of chetzi shekel, was in order to donate to the sacrifices in the temple.
Right.
Yes, there was another chetzi shekel that was used for counting. That when you wanted to count the Jews, they would give a chetzi shekel. Do you understand? That's what we're talking about here. Right. So if we're not talking about the donations to the temple, which is what they did around Purim time. We're talking about the counting of the Jews. What about the children? Why are they not? If you want to have a Dover Sheba Minyan, right? Why are they? According to the Shalosh, says we don't want them to be bottled. Yeah, then the children should also be accounted. And what about even the ladies? You might want to say the ladies as well.
For sure.
And the bobbers and the zaydas, where we also won't count.
So they said that they
On the 12 or 13,
Yes.
young children
Yes.
are strictly speaking not obliged to keep mitzvahs. So, for example,
All right, but what about from 13 on?
till 20.
Yeah, we have
13 to got quite a few teens, quite a few teenagers. Yeah. Okay, so there explains something like this, that, it's true, of course, that a Dover Sheba Minyan, something that is countable, will not become bottle, regardless. And however, the question is, and so the Jewish people, correct, will not become bottle necessarily because they are a thing that is not counted. However, will they have an impact on the world? How much impact will they have on the world? That's a different story. You can be sort of in the world, not having an impact on the world and just sort of existing as a Jew, but not really having much impact or any impact. Okay. Or you can be in the world and having an impact, spreading spirituality, bringing goodness, bringing light into the world. For this, you need a physical counting. The physical counting brings much more of a power and an impact that we would have as Jews in the world. Okay.
But also the fact that we have to have 10 men to make up a million.
Yes.
Shows that we can't manage without 10 people.
Well,
Without a forum.
okay, that comes back to the idea we were telling about quantity versus quality. Exactly.
That's right.
Right. Yeah. Well, but when okay, but this is a slightly different point. That is another point. The quantity does equal quality, and a very good point. A minyan, when you have 10, you could have 9 tzaddikim in a room, 9 Lubavitcher Rebbes or 9 great tzaddikim or any Rebbe, yes, and they can't say Kaddish. If you've got 10 nudniks in the room, yes, you can say Kaddish and Baruch Hu and everything. It's like, well, but what happened there? Well, all these nudniks suddenly, yeah, because that's not a matter of quality; it's a matter of quantity. Correct, right? So now. But now we're not talking about that. We're talking about the fact that something that is counted is about not being bottled. We're addressing the shalom. So the Rebbe says that in order to impact the world, that's why Hashem counted us. Yes, it's not just about not being bottled, not being nullified. It's about having an impact on the world. And this is why we only count from 20 up. Because really, you see, from a very young age, what are children basically involved in? Learning. They're in learning. They're in yeshiva. Are they out in the world? No. They're not out in the world. So therefore, they don't need to be counted. They don't need to be counted because they're not out in the world, so to speak, having that impact on the world because they're in the world of holiness. They're learning. Yes? We said Ben Chumash Lemekre. Ben 5 years old, you teach him Chumash. 10 years old, you teach him Mishnah. 15, you start teaching him Gemara. Yes, when it comes to 20, it says Esrim Lirdof. Yes, Esrim Lirdof. Well, Lirdof literally means to pursue. Thank you. To pursue. So what are you doing? You're pursuing. You're pursuing a career. You're pursuing a family. You're pursuing a parnasa. We say that 10 times. Pursuing a parnasa. Right. So you're pursuing a parnasa.
A zivug.
Or of course, you're pursuing a zivug. In other words, a zivug, a marriage means you're going to be out in the world. Yes, a parnos and a zivug. Yes, everybody wasn't. Nowadays, everyone goes to kollel, right? But it didn't used to be like that. All right, a kollel was a big luxury. It
still is.
Huh? It still is a luxury. You're right, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, but it is for a different reason. But the point is that children are involved. And I would say to a degree that technically speaking and traditionally speaking, women also, of course, they were involved in the home. Yeah. So they weren't so much out in the world. Yes, they were nurturing the spirituality of the home. They were making it, right? So therefore, they also don't need to be counted. And what maybe the Bobbers and the Zazers also, they're like, they're already kind of retired, but, they're sort of going to Bournemouth every other week. You know what I'm saying? So therefore, they're not so much, well, I mean, you could say Bournemouth in the world, I'm not sure, but okay. But you understand the idea. So therefore, this answers the 2 questions about counting. So this was just a resolution of the Shla. I just wanted to share that with you, which I thought was a very interesting idea. So any questions on that? No? Okay.
It was just one thing I was thinking, but I don't know if it's got anything to do with it. But when you were saying about the numbers, when it was Lot, when he was in Sodom, it wasn't so many that got out.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'm afraid there's so many.
Yes.
Well, what's that got to?
No, I think she was trying to say because there were less than 10 tzaddikim in Sodom and Gomorrah, so they couldn't.
But that on the contrary, that's making the point. 10 tzaddikim is making a point.
Yes, that's right. If there were less, and that's why Sodom and Gomorrah was.
But is this a question or a confirmation?
No, I'm just saying the number was much smaller. When he went out of Sodom, there was hardly anybody, just him and his whoever it was.
And therefore.
So the number was because the number was smaller.
The number was smaller.
That's why Abraham stopped praying, because he couldn't pray for less.
But it sounds like you're just confirming and agreeing with what I'm saying.
She is.
No, but she says no, she's not.
I'm not sure what I'm saying actually.
Oh, you're not sure.
It sounds good.
All right. Well, if you're not sure, then that makes 10 of us. We've got a million of people here who don't know what you're talking about. But okay, it is.
Sometimes learn something and it sparks up in your mind something else. And
Yes.
you reminded her of this.
All right.
Abraham said, if there's so many.
Well, that's the whole point, because Avram was asking. There was, you see, Avram is that's why I thought you're actually reinforcing. We thought you were reinforcing what we were saying. That he first Avram started with 50, right? Why did he say 50? Because there were 5 towns. That was the original 5 towns. Yes. No, it's true. There were 5 towns in Sodom and Gomorrah, Admod Sfoyim, okay, and Mitzar, Soyar. There were 5 towns, okay, and Avram was saying if there are 10 tzaddikim in each of these 5 towns, then we'll be saved. They'll be saved, the 5 towns, right? If Sodom and Gomorrah were the main ones, yes, and the other 3 were more secondary. So when he went down, when he's going down, 40, 30, 20, yes, he was basically at 10. He was saying, well, okay, one, you're going to say 5 cities. Now maybe you'll say 4. Then you say 3, 2, 1, right? It was like countdown, right? But the minimum amount was needed was 10. And actually it was 9, actually. Why 9? Well, actually it was Hashem. I believe that was included there. 9 tzaddikim. I think it was apart from Lot, but
how many actually were there?
I'm sorry.
How many actually were there?
How many actually what were there?
None.
Oh no, there were none. That's what Russian says. There was nobody.
So for one person, one person.
Yeah.
That doesn't count in your idea of bottle.
No, 1 was not good enough to save a city.
But
neither was 2, neither was 3.
He still got saved. We're still here. We're still here.
No, we're not all descended from Lot. I'm sorry. Moab is descended from Lot, not no, Ammon and Moab, we're not from Lot, Denise, I'm sorry. We're from Noah and Adam, not Noah, but we're from Avram and all that lot. So that was totally unintended. No, the bigger question you had is that how come that Lot had, he actually, from him came actually the progenitor of Mashiach. But but I always find the fact is he saved one of the cities through his prayers. I say this every year, that Lot in a way had more power and effect than even Avram's prayers, because Avram tried to save the cities and Hashem said no, forget it, there's no tzaddikim, right? And in the end Lot said, oh please, could we have one to save one city, Mitzar, Tzoar, and he davened that Hashem should save Tzoar, and Hashem listened. He said, all right, go on, run away to Tzoar, leave me alone. So he had his prayers answered. That was quite incredible. He had to go somewhere. In the end, he left Mitzar anyway and went into a cave. What do you mean?
Rabbi Akiva also, he prayed that the Vespasian shouldn't destroy everything and everything.
Oh, you mean Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai?
Oh, so Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, yes, and they saved Yavne.
Yeah, but that decision haunted him his whole life, because he wondered, could he have asked for Jerusalem?
No,
well, that was the cheshbon he made. he felt at the time, but it haunted him a bit. Because sometimes, you know, if you go and ask, for example, you ask a very rich person for a donation, and he says, well, how much do you want? You don't know what to say. You don't know what to say. 1,000, 2,000, and you're scared because you're scared if you're big. You know, he may like get angry and say, "Are you crazy? Get out of here." So, but you want to do too small because he's, you know, and so you say, no, 5. How about 5? You know, 5? Yeah, no problem. 5, take 5, and then ask for 10. You know, you see. So this is a bit, I think. Yochum and Zaka, it bothered him that he felt maybe that because had listened to him and he was so what's the word, acquiescent, that you see that had he, I mean, this is Mephoshim explain, you know, because when it says when he on his deathbed, he said, well, I don't know where they're leading me, to Gehenna, to hell, to heaven, or the other way. So people say, what? Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai, one of the greatest sages we ever had. Great. You're not sure if you're going to Gehenna. What are you talking about? So they say, unfortunately, say that this decision about asking just for Yavne bothered him, that he didn't ask for Yerushalayim. And he said, how many people could he have saved had he? You know, he said, well, if you don't ask, you don't get. Do you know what I'm saying? So, but I'm just sharing that with you. I'm not sure how that actually fits into our class.
Can I share a beautiful story?
A beautiful story.
Yeah, the Rabbi Finkel, who had millions to pay for the Mir Yeshiva, a very rich man sat opposite. He wasn't a religious man, and he pushed over his checkbook and he signed. He said, "Write whatever you want." So he said, "Anything I want?" He said, "Yes." So he said, "I'm not quite sure."
Recording in progress.
Take this across the road. There's a Judaica store.
Could you? I'm sorry. Could you mute Denise, please?
And fill it in and pay for it for yourself and promise me you'll put them on every day.
Sorry.
And that's what he did with the signed check. He said to the guy who signed the check and said, "Put whatever you want." And he said no. He said to his helper, he said, "Go across the road to the fill-in store, buy the best petrol you can, fill it in." And he said to the wealthy man, "He's going to buy you to fill in with this, and you're going to put them on every day."
So he wasn't asking any money for the yeshiva.
No, he probably does. No, but what he's saying is, I care about you.
No,
Me. And that was it's a true story. It's like very often. I mean, I remember, like your husband will say to you, "How much do you want?" And you ask for a bit more than you really need, and then you're sorry that you didn't ask for more. Usually he knows your mindset and gives you a bit less anyway. So.
All right, ladies, thank you very much for listening. Thank you for the stories. Thank you for the input. Thank you for the quality, the quantity and the quality. That's Hashem. We wish you, we'll see you again next time. Yes, Hashem. I'm wishing everybody a very, of course, yes, next week, of course, we will. We're not on. We can't do that. This is. Yeah, Erev Yontov, it's not going to work, I'm afraid. I'm sorry. So we'll see you, Mitzvah Hashem, in 2 weeks' time.
Buying flowers.
And cheesecake. Don't forget cheesecake. Can I just make a bit of an appeal here? In about 2 weeks, just about 2.5 weeks' time, a week after Shavuos, we're making our fundraising, annual fundraising charity thing for Chabad House of Hendon. We need to do this once a year, and it's a big privilege and schus for anybody. The best way to really help us, obviously, if you can, to give on the day would be amazing. Do you send it out? But also, yes, of course. But what I wanted to say was that if one is able to take a page, so to speak, and become like a sort of a part of the team, in order that on the day you just call a few friends and send them messages and ask them to donate, and you send a link. That will help us so much, because if a lot of people do that, then much more will come in. And so if I can ask if you can consider
on my page,
yes, and you're basically helping people to get, and you make a certain, how should we say, an objective. What's another word for objective? A certain amount, huh? No, amount of money that you want to. A target, thank you. A target, you make a target. And you let, so if you can please consider that, that would be very good. And let me know if
So
you're able
funny,
to do that.
Craig just got one this morning
Thank
from
you.
I don't know, she goes, oh, another.
Yeah, but do that, I got that one too.
Well, we're all getting them all the time, I have
Yeah.
to say. And I asked the
You
chap
asked
who
last
we're
week.
doing with this. Now, I'm just going to tell you this, because it's very important to know. I asked him, I said, look, are people getting tired of all this, or are people still making money? He said, well, yes and yes. He said, people are obviously getting good, but it's not affecting. In other words, all of the campaigns, you see them still making the money.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah.
So it is a bit of a, some people do find it a bit irritating every Monday and Thursday, or even more, every day, people are sending things, help me, help me, help me, help me. But if a lot of people give a small amount, it doesn't really matter, because people work, people have MISA, people are supposed to give a certain amount, you know. So, you know, 10 times 180, 180 to 10, you give to 10, you can give 10 charities 18 pounds, or you can give 180.
See, my brother
We are
got
hoping
one.
to have a matched funds, so it will double things. So if a person will give 50 pounds, that will mean like 100. Yeah,
That's what we did last year.
that's what we've done every year. Yeah.
What did you make last year?
Well, we made the aim was 77, and we made about 80, 81.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and this year we're hoping to
Was
do
that
it all.
before the match or with the match?
No, after the match. Oh, that is from the coronation. That is supposed to be Mrs. Overlander. I don't know. It fell apart as we came. Do you know how to fix this?
Oh, no, it all fell apart before.
No, but it only fell out of. But it was to put drinks in or cakes. Yeah.
It's like,
All the best. Thank you.
Everyone cheer.